the management to discuss the outlook for us, Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, the chairman of the company. Good morning, ma'am, and thanks so much for joining in. First, if you could tell us what was the revenue hit on account of the fire at Syngene, and secondly, the extent of pricing pressure at small molecules.
I think you have to look at our numbers, at an annualized basis. I think in terms of, let me answer the Syngene question first. I think Syngene has had a muted set of numbers, largely attributable to the fire incident. I don't think I can put an exact number as to what has, what has caused the muted numbers in Q4, but I think this was actually anticipated. Having said that, I think they have taken a lot of corrective action because the hit could have been much larger. But I think they have basically delivered a good set of numbers in the sense at an annualized level, where in the first few quarters they had a very strong showing. The fire certainly gave them a setback in the last 2 quarters, and that's what you're actually seeing this quarter. In terms of Biocon's own numbers, Q4 numbers should not be seen in isolation, because our business is a very annualized review business, and from that point of view, I think you can see that small molecules has had a very robust 14% growth in terms of FY17. The quarterly showing is really a phasing issue. Some of it has to do with basically, supplying its customers when they, in terms of their needs, which sometimes does get deferred to, the following month or whatever it is. But other than that, I think Syngene, small molecules has had a pretty good showing this year. The small molecules business continues to be boosted by both statins and immunosuppressants, and there is no change in that particular business.
All right, ma'am. Good morning. Always a pleasure talking to you. You've given us some clarity in terms of your small molecules business as well as your research services business. But I want to ask you about the other couple of segments. We have seen a good growth that's coming in your branded formulations business as well as your biologics business. But a bit of a problem in terms of margins in both those two segments. Why is that? Could we see a margin recovery in both these two segments going ahead? Together, they constituted close to around 30% of your revenues.
Well, I think biologics business has to be seen in context of the R&D spends. As you know, these businesses include a lot of our global R&D spends. So if you look at it in that context, then you will see that if you strip away R&D spends, I think at an operational level, these businesses are very, very healthy and robust. And I think that's where you're getting a slight, cloud over the understanding of what these margins mean in the biologics business. In terms of branded formulations, actually there has been an improvement in margins, and you're likely to see this improvement in margins going ahead into FY18. As you know, there has been a lot of restructuring of our specialty business in India. We have seen a lot of reorg happening in the India business. So all this will now start correcting and, improving in FY18.
Okay, so improvement in branded formulation margins perhaps to continue. Ma'am, you've also given us a bit of a cautious outlook on your revenue growth on account of delayed approvals. First, if you could take us through when you expect the approvals to pick up. And secondly, when you mean cautious, what should be the extent of growth we could expect in FY18? In 17, it was, I think, close to about an 18% growth. So how would it compare, FY18 versus 17, when you say cautious?
So let me explain why I have talked about a cautious outlook in FY18. You see, a large number of our regulatory approvals that we were anticipating in Q4 FY17 have got delayed in many of the emerging markets. We find this to be a sort of a pattern in emerging markets where regulatory approvals in the past have been fairly predictable, and this is not so now. We are seeing suddenly regulatory approvals being delayed by a few quarters. That's why I said I'm a bit, cautiously optimistic. We hope that we will get all these regulatory approvals in FY18 as anticipated, but if there are delays, then obviously it affects us for a few quarters. So we are expecting, we are at least factoring in some of these possible delays that we are seeing as a trend happening across the world. Secondly, I think we are also concerned about the strengthening rupee. We've taken this hit this quarter, where we've had a foreign exchange loss this quarter. But going forward, we have to make sure that we are on top of these kind of rupee appreciation challenges. That I certainly see as a headwind for many of our exports. Thirdly, I think we need more clarity around the GST issue. What does it mean for us as a company? So that's again something where I remain cautious in terms of factoring anything to do with the GST aspects of our business. So all in all, this is why I think I said we would like to be cautiously optimistic. Hopefully, even if there are regulatory delays, hopefully even if it were delayed for a quarter or two, hopefully the ramp up can happen so that our business, for the annualized business growth, could be sort of back-ended. But if the regulatory approvals come in time, then obviously it will get smoothened out. So that's why I just wanted to provide this outlook in terms of our overall business. Well, having said that, I think we are very optimistic about many of the opportunities that lie ahead of us in terms of our biosimilars business in emerging markets, our branded formulations business going forward into FY18, and so on and so forth.
All right, ma'am, but can we do in terms of revenue guidance, I mean, for FY18 as well as we did in FY17? If I just compare Biocon stock performance with all the other pharma companies, Biocon stock has doubled in the last fiscal. So it shows the kind of, the kind of buoyancy and the kind of expectations investors have in the company. So can we pencil in that 18% that we did in the last year? And in terms of margins, well, the rupee could play spoilsport there. But revenue guidance?
We don't provide revenue guidance, but I think a lot of the valuation that is being ascribed to Biocon is certainly because of its biosimilars opportunity. Right. And as you know, we remain committed to our $1 billion target by FY19. So I think that's what has been baked into the expectations. Right. I don't think I would like to provide a guidance for FY18, but suffice to say that we have a lot of opportunities and upsides in FY18, which we hope to deliver on.
Okay, ma'am, since you spoke about biosimilars, the US FDA and the EU authorities were expected to inspect your Bengaluru facility from where the company's biosimilars for the United States were filed. If you could give us an update on the status of those inspections?
Well, all I can say is that the inspections have happened. I am not able to comment on the outcome because we do not comment on outcome. But suffice to say that there are no showstoppers. And if there was anything material to announce, I would have announced it. But since there is nothing material to announce, we remain optimistic about getting approvals in the expected time.
Okay.
All right, so that should be taken down as a positive then. But let's focus on the regulatory submissions for insulin glargine. Now, just going through your release, and you've said, ma'am, that they were made in developed markets like Australia as well as in Canada. How big an opportunity is it? Your sense of the same?
Well, these are interesting markets, but, the biggest markets still remain the US and, of course, Europe as a whole.
Okay. Can you give us a sense of what the outlook on biosimilars might be? Any form of a guidance for FY18 as well as FY19 or FY19?
Well, FY18 is largely an emerging market opportunity in terms of revenues, which, we already have a pretty good presence in many of these emerging markets, and we will only add to it. So I think that's as far as I can go in terms of giving you any kind of optics on biosimilars in emerging markets. and FY18. But the developed market opportunity will only open up in FY19. So we do hope that we will see some revenues being contributed from some of these developed markets opportunities in FY19 and beyond. That's as much optics I can give you at this point in time.
All right, ma'am, let's talk about your Malaysian facility. You know, for the last few quarters, you have been updating us on that. If you could tell us what is the utilization levels there, you know, the markets that facility is catering to, and also which markets there is a pending approval that's likely to come through.
So, as you know, the Malaysian market at the moment is catering to the Malaysian, OTA or the offtake agreement needs of the Malaysian Health Ministry. That itself has been a big boon for the Malaysian commercialization. Apart from that, we also expect to receive a large number of emerging market regulatory approvals, which will now start enabling Malaysia to supply insulins to many of these emerging markets. And moving forward, we hope to supply both to Europe and US for our insulin analogs from Malaysia.
Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us and speaking exclusively to CNBC TV 18. So that's a cautiously optimistic management of Biocon. A lot hinges on the approvals from the emerging market authorities for their outlook about FY18. Well, with that, we've already extended our time on Chartbuster, so we'll take your leave. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned. Trading Hour comes up next. Well, Motilal Oswal had a fairly strong March quarter. Their total income grew by close to about 70%. Their profits were higher by nearly 90%, coming in at 90 crore on a year-on-year basis. That is the management of Motilal Oswal. The stock, if it can come up for you on your screen, I think is seeing a bit of a correction despite a fairly good March quarter. We'll let the management settle down. We'll slip into a very short break. The next show, Trading Hour, will take up Motilal Oswal's earnings in greater detail with the management.